So for our next speaker, he is the co-founder of Ethereum and a researcher at the Ethereum Foundation. In 2011, he co-founded Bitcoin Magazine. And in 2013, he published a white paper outlining the ideas that shaped Ethereum. And now, Vitalik Buterin is with us today. Very exciting. He's going to talk to us about the great merge, Rearchitecting Ethereum. Vitalik, please come up. Hey, over to you.
Sorry. Great. So we'll start off by just giving a recap of one of the really exciting things that's happened to the Ethereum protocol this year. It's actually the biggest change to the Ethereum protocol that has ever been made, and the culmination of 8 years of work in the Ethereum research and development ecosystem, which is the merge. Right? So what is the merge? So up until about a month and a half ago, Ethereum was a blockchain that ran on a consensus algorithm, which is called proof of work. Right? Proof of work relies on a bunch of miners that are running computations on specialized hardware that costs billions of dollars 24/7 as a way of proving that they have economic resources and that those economic resources are going into helping to secure particular blocks. Now, proof of work has served Ethereum very well. It has been the backbone of the Ethereum network for over 7 years, and the backbone of the Bitcoin network for about 13 and a half years now. But there's a lot of criticisms of proof of work, right? It's not as secure as it could be. It has issues with centralization. It requires a significant amount of issuance to keep operating, and it has this pretty significant environmental issue because of all of the electricity consumed and all of the hardware that's rapidly consumed and destroyed by this process of running hardware to do computations 24/7. So a month and a half ago, what happened was that the Ethereum system stopped running proof of work and started running proof of stake. Now, the Ethereum proof of stake beacon chain is a chain that has actually been running for about 2 years before, right? So the beacon chain launched in December 2020, and this was just, for the first 2 years, a chain that was just running proof of stake by itself. It was not securing anything, except it was just adding one new block every 12 seconds, right? And these last 2 years were basically a big, really long testing period that allowed the proof of stake system to get on its feet. It allowed the ecosystem to get used to it. It allowed people who wanted to participate in proof of stake as what are called validators, as nodes that are securing the network in this new system, to really just get their hands around the system and better understand what's going on and how to participate, verify that everything is secure. And a month and a half ago, like basically the part of the Ethereum blocks that contains transactions and everything that's involved in Ethereum's actual operation stopped being part of proof of work blocks and instead became part of the proof of stake blocks. Now, what is proof of stake in briefly? Basically, if you have 32 ETH, right? ETH is Ether, the native cryptocurrency of the Ethereum protocol. You can deposit that 32 ETH into the proof of stake deposit contract, and you become what is called a validator, right? A validator is a node that is part of the role of securing the Ethereum network. Now, so you become a validator, and as a validator, you produce blocks, and as a validator, you help vote on other people's blocks, and like basically the entire consensus of a chain is this ongoing agreement between everyone who has deposited their ETH and signed up to become a validator, right? So instead of proof of work, which is proof of assets and computation outside of the chain, which is where the expensive proof of work comes in, proof of stake comes from being able the assets and the proof of the assets that you put in within the Ethereum system itself. The road to the merge was this very long process, right? So back in January 2014, I published this blog post called Slasher, which was our very first attempt at a proof-of-stake algorithm. At the time, we did not even know whether or not proof-of-stake can work. At the time, the blog post even explicitly said, hey, we're making no promises that we will ever switch to proof-of-stake. We have no idea if it works, and this is just an exploration. It's an idea, and we're going to keep looking at it, but at the same time, there is a chance that Ethereum might become a proof-of-stake system in the future. In November 2014, another blog post on this concept of weak subjectivity, and I think sometime around then was the turning point when we really became convinced that proof-of-stake actually is the way to go. 2015, 2016, early versions of the proof-of-stake algorithm called Casper. 2017, the Casper FFG paper, which describes roughly the mechanism that's actually responsible for modern proof-of-stake as running in Ethereum today. 2018, the development of the software that runs the beacon chain, Ethereum's proof-of-stake chain, actually started. So the various teams, these are independent companies like Prismatic, Lighthouse, Nimbus, and a couple of others, independent teams that are writing the Ethereum proof-of-stake client code, actually started developing and actually really started coding full-time. 2.5 years later, December 2020, the beacon chain launched. Then the first hard fork of the beacon chain, which was called Altair, happened in October 2021. And in 2022, September 15th, only a month and a half ago, we had the merge. So what are the benefits of the merge, right? One of the big and exciting ones is, of course, that proof-of-stake basically completely solves the electricity waste issues that a lot of people criticize blockchains and cryptocurrencies for, right? So the major estimates have suggested that after the merge, Ethereum consumes about 99.95% less, so at least 2,000 times less electricity than it did before the merge, right? So before the merge, depending on hash rates, depending on prices, Ethereum was consuming, I think, about the same amount of electricity as like an average wealthy country of like maybe 1 to 3 million people, right? So somewhere, not quite as much as Singapore, but definitely much closer to those levels than we want it to be. And then at the merge on September 15th, that electricity consumption just disappeared completely, right? And now Ethereum consumes less energy than basically most mainstream, even centralized web services that everyone uses today. Now, saving electricity is not the only benefit of the merge, right? So the Ethereum proof-of-stake consensus design is this parallel design that has this, or powerful design that has this concept of parallel confirmations, where instead of every block with the transactions inside of that block slowly getting more and more secure as new blocks get added on top of it one by one, the way that happens in proof of work. In this proof-of-stake design, there are many thousands of validators that are making what are called attestations, these confirmation messages, on each block in parallel. And so a block has a very high degree of security, even only a few seconds after that block gets published. We can actually see this in the data. So forked blocks are basically blocks that looked like they were going to get confirmed briefly, but then something weird happened in the network and they ended up not getting confirmed. So before the merge, you could see that there were multiple of these always happening every hour. And after the merge, well, the most recent one was about 3 days ago, and then the one before that was about 11 days ago. And as far as we can tell, each and every one of these incidents had been because the creator of the block did something wrong and published their block too late, right? So the network is actually working almost perfectly smoothly after the merge has taken place. It's become much more difficult to attack the chain. Also, proof-of-stake has some important secondary benefits that make it easier to make future upgrades, such as upgrades related to scalability, sharding, and other kinds of things that will make it easier for us to build for the next 5 to 10 years. And proof of stake requires a much lower level of issuance. So more economically sustainable, more environmentally sustainable, more sustainable in terms of our future development needs, just generally a much more sustainable Ethereum protocol with proof of stake, right? So the merge really has occupied the bulk of the Ethereum developer and research community's attention for about the past 8 years. Now that the merge is done, this gives us an opportunity to focus fully on other problems and very important problems that matter the most to the Ethereum ecosystem and people here, users. So what are the remaining problems? Now, there's a pretty long list of other problems, of course. The reality is that there are 8 billion people in the world, and the vast majority of them are not using blockchains, and even the majority of people who are using cryptocurrencies are not using cryptocurrencies through blockchains today, right? This is a problem that we recognize. So this is actually a problem that I observed personally, right? When I was visiting Argentina at the end of last year, again, Argentina is a country where there is a huge amount of cryptocurrency adoption, right? And the reason why the cryptocurrency adoption in places like this is very high is because unlike Singapore and many other developed countries where the economy is stable, the local currency is very stable, in Argentina and many other developing economies, the local currency is not stable at all, right? Like Argentina has had to deal with an average of around 30% inflation per year for the last few decades, right? So this is not a place where you can just say, if you invest in cryptocurrencies, then you have very high risk because, well, anything that you do is going to have very high risk, right? And so the problem, though, is that the users that I saw, and I saw very many users, they were not interacting with cryptocurrency through the blockchain. They were interacting with cryptocurrency through centralized intermediaries. So Binance was a very popular one, and there's others too. Now, why do they do this? Well, because blockchains are not scalable enough, because blockchains do not have a good user experience. When you send a transaction, it takes, on the blockchain, several minutes for that transaction to get confirmed. There is a transaction fee. Right now, the transaction fee is somewhere between 10 and 50 cents. Last year, there was more demand to use blockchains, and so the fee was about $5. And if you just do an accounts-to-accounts transfer inside of Binance, then the cost is zero and it's instant, right? So this is, on the one hand, I think a lot of those users, they're grateful that there just exists any channel at all by which they can use cryptocurrency conveniently, because in their context, they do need it. But at the same time, it's a very unfortunate situation because you lose the benefits of trustless, transparent, and decentralized systems. You lose the benefit of open ledgers, and basically, if you're interacting with blockchain-based assets through an intermediary that's centralized, then you lose a lot of the benefits, right? And so scalability, user experience, all of these issues are extremely important, and they're issues that we just recognize that we have to solve if we want blockchains and the actual benefits of blockchain technology and decentralized systems to succeed, and not just create a new kind of asset that is more volatile and people interact with through the same kinds of front ends that they do today. So important issues, and we need to solve them. Privacy is another issue, and we need to solve privacy too. And this is something that I think, especially with some of the amazing recent improvements in zero-knowledge proof technology, we're starting to make a lot of headway in. And, it's so a lot of good progress on these, right? Now, dank sharding, this is Ethereum's scalability solution, right? So the basic idea behind Ethereum's current approach to scaling is what we call this roll-up-centric roadmap, right? This layer 2-based scaling solution, where the Ethereum blockchain itself does not try to provide every single piece of functionality at high scale that users want, right? The Ethereum layer 1 blockchain itself focuses on being a stable and dependable system that tries to be as decentralized as possible, tries to be as robust as possible, and then it leaves it to layer 2 protocols, such as rollups. Rollups are currently the most popular one. Validiums are also starting to be popular and make sense in a lot of use cases. Validiums in particular, I think, make a huge amount of sense in a lot of enterprise and industry, potentially even governmental use cases. But it's these layer 2 protocols that actually provide highly scalable functionality that users need. And because of the properties that the base layer offers, these layer 2 systems can actually be open and permissionless and decentralized and trustless, and all of these things that we expect out of layer 1, right? So Dag sharding basically improves the Ethereum base layer by adding a large amount of data space. So this is not space for transactions where the Ethereum protocol does complicated computations on them. This is just space where there's a lot of data, and people can send what are called blob transactions that just include a large amount of data. It's up to these layer 2 rollup protocols to interpret that data and take advantage of it to actually create these scalable systems that provide value to users. So these are both things that are being very actively worked on. Account abstraction is another interesting one, right? So this one is, I think, important to talk about. This is an improvement not in scalability, but in security for users, right? So today, if you want to hold blockchain-based assets, any kind of assets, even non-financial things, even an ENS name, for example, on a blockchain, then you need to have a wallet. And the only kind of wallet that's easy to use is what's called an externally owned account, an EOA. And this is a wallet that is protected by a single private key, right? So there is a single piece of information, a 32-byte string, that is saved somewhere on your computer. And if you have this private key, you can send whatever transactions from the wallet that you want. And if you do not have the private key, then you can't. Right? And so the problem is, well, if you lose the private key, then you're screwed, you lose access to your assets, and if someone else gains access to your private key, then they can also steal your assets. The solution to this is to move from these single key controlled EOA wallets to more sophisticated smart contract wallets that do various kinds of multi-factor authentication, right? So there is not one single piece of information that controls access to your entire account. There are multiple pieces of information that come together to authorize transactions. So this could mean multiple keys controlled by yourself. This could mean what I call social recovery, where you have some set of keys that can recover your account, and those keys are held by other people that you know and trust. So this is, it's actually a mechanism that has been used by WeChat to do account recovery, which actually, in my opinion, does it much better than the fully centralized forms of account recovery that exist in some of companies like Twitter and Facebook, right? But this can be done in a fully decentralized way, on-chain smart contract code, and technologies like this can really raise the bar in terms of improving security and actually make it possible for regular people who are not extremely paranoid and extremely technically sophisticated to actually use blockchains and blockchain-based assets and gain the benefits of doing this. So these are all some examples of the directions that we're taking, right? I think the longer-term goal is that there is a strong desire to stabilize the Ethereum protocol over time, to move toward a world where the Ethereum protocol changes less and less, and eventually it does become something that changes very little. But until we get to this point, right, I think for the next couple of years, we are going to be in this period where a lot of these things that I talked about, whether for scalability or security, or to make things easier for users in different places, to reduce fees, which is something really important for people in lower income countries that cannot afford often even $1 or even 50 cents to pay for a transaction. So these are all things that are being very actively worked on, but the longer term goal is absolutely to move toward the Ethereum base layer just being something that is stable and dependable and changes very little, much like internet protocols do today, right? But this is still something that will take more years to get there. Ethereum and blockchain technology is a rapidly evolving ecosystem. There are many things that people want to be able to do, whether it's regular users or enterprises or just many kinds of users in many different contexts. There are things that they want to do that they're just not able to do today because of these limitations of technology. And the switch to proof of stake, I think, was the first really big change to Ethereum that was made. And to me and to the Ethereum research and development community, it really shows that these kinds of large improvements to the protocol that solve real problems that people have are possible. And these remaining problems are going to be worked on over the next few years. And there's a huge number of very smart people working on them. And making sure that we have an amazing, scalable, secure, open protocol and that there are tools that allow people to protect the safety of their accounts, to protect privacy, improve convenience for users, improve convenience for developers. These are the kinds of things that Ethereum protocol and ecosystem development over the next 5 to 10 years will be working on. Thank you.